Hey everyone, and welcome to the breakdown. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. I really, really appreciate it. For today, we're going to jump into an episode about a young lady who I've been following. Her name is Heather Cox Richardson. She is a scholar. She's a historian. Maybe has a degree in international relations. I'm not sure, but I know her claim to fame is that she is a historian, and we understand that those who do not understand or learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So she is on a mission to try to make sure that people get educated as concerning how we should live this life and what we should do in order to overcome what's going on, particularly in the White House. I am concerned as a former law enforcement official, given what we see going on with ICE, given what we see with going on with the FBI, and given those two primary or two really relevant systems of law enforcement. What I'm concerned about happening is that they would infect local law enforcement, which is my wheelhouse. So if ICE agents can get away with this, wearing masks, no name tags, if the FBI can get away with the nonsense that they've been doing as far as firing people in botching, in my estimation, botching investigations, then I'm concerned about local law enforcement taking those same type of lessons, particularly with court cases that may go in their favor, Supreme Court cases that may go in ICE's favor, et cetera, right? Because ICE agents can uh, 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 racially profile people. Why can't local law enforcement begin to do the same thing? It's a slippery slope. That's why I pay attention to it. So we're going to listen to Heather Cox Richardson. And again, what I like to always have, and my time in law enforcement and my time in the upper echelon of the department and taking tests and et cetera, is that you have to bring people solutions. Don't just come to me with problems. Come to me with solutions. When I was a commander, I demanded my subordinates came to me with the solution. Don't tell me what a problem. You need to come to me with a solution, because once you comes to my level, then I'm going to have to do something very, very harsh about it. So you guys need to figure it out. You sergeants, you lieutenants, figure it out. But my point is that we need to come up with solutions in order to combat what's going on here. And I want to say that Heather Cox Richardson is trying to give us a little bit of those solutions. So let's listen to her for a little bit here.
And I have a really hard time with this argument, not least because I'm not paying a lot of attention to the structure of the Democratic Party right now. But because what does that look like? What does that mean in today's America to go centrist? And I think, and I could be wrong, but I think what people mean is to be more like the Republicans, to try and pick up Republican voters by kind of wiggling over toward the Republicans. And what I would say to that is that the Republican Party currently has veered so far to the right, it's off the cliff. And to be a centrist American right now is to embrace the policies that are being talked about as if they're progressive, as if they are somehow on the left. And they're really not. The idea of taxing people more progressively than they currently are, so that the wealthier people pay more in taxes. So our world looks much more like it did under George W. Bush, for example, hardly a left-wing reactionary. Or
crazy that we had to talk about in order to get back to the center or get back to the more left wing is talking about taxing people, right? And as she mentioned, right, George W. Bush was not a centrist or a left-wing radical, all right, but trying to get back to sensible tax policies where the poor are not being eviscerated while the wealthy don't pay their fair share in taxes.
Or under, in the 1990s, when we'd last had a budget surplus under Clinton, looking like that is extraordinarily popular. So I would call that centrist. Higher taxes on the wealthy is a really popular position. What about things like healthcare? Do we go? What does centrist mean in a world in which the Republicans are trying to cut Medicaid dramatically and throw millions of people off their healthcare? To me, centrist says people should have healthcare. And by the way, the person who first suggested that in the United States is Theodore expletive Roosevelt, more than 120 years ago. He was a Republican president at the beginning of the 20th century. That, to me, does not say progressive in a derogatory sense. That says centrist. So when people say, what should the Democrats do? What I look at in this moment is the 1850s, because in that moment we had something that looks very similar, I think, to where we are today. That is, the Democrats in that period, the parties have switched sides. The Democrats in that period had fallen under the control of a very small group of elite enslavers who were really, really, really wealthy and really controlled the American economy. And they basically said, hey, it's our country. We get to run it however we want. We're going to spread human enslavement into the American West. We're going to take over the North through the House of Representatives. And we're going to start, and you can read this, by the way, it's in things like the Cornerstone speech by Alexander Stephens. We're going to run the world because we have all the money and we're going to enslave people all over the world. That's not the way they put it, but that's, this is the great future they kept talking about. And when that happened, people in the North who recognized that they were going to lose access to the American West and lose democracy in the American North said, no, you're not going to do that. We, even though we have been voting Democratic or voting Whig, which were the opponents of the Democrats, we're pissed off that the Whigs are not taking a stronger stand, and we're sure not going to cooperate with the Democrats. And they came together as what were known as the anti-Nebraska parties. I'm not going to go into the Kansas-Nebraska Act right now, but they went into these anti-Nebraska parties, and for 2 years, they didn't really have any idea yet, except what they weren't. It's going to be
So what I would take a little bit of issue here is that there was a party that she's mentioning right here that's kind of stood up to what it was going on at the time in this pre-Civil War time or whatever, or Civil War time. But the problem is that our Congress today is bought and paid for by dark money, by uh, PACs, super PACs, business corporations. That Glass-Steagall was a horrible decision, and so we're all paying the penalty for that now. So your vote doesn't count, my vote doesn't count. People are buying the presidency, buying elections, buying mayors, buying governors, buying senators, buying representatives, and so therefore the will of the people is being neglected. The will of the people want higher taxes. The will of the people don't want tariffs. The will of the people don't want expensive ACA benefits, right? They want the will of the people don't want these wars. The will of the people is being overrun. And that wasn't the case at that time. It's going to be more difficult to get people, and you got to get people who are from the outside. So this whole Congress may need to be voted out of office. If they're not in line, there's a guy who does he does Instagram. At least I see him on Instagram. It may be TikToks, and he says, "Is your representative a piece of S?" And so he goes through their voting record and all that. It's pretty good. It's really, really good. He's on. I follow him on Instagram, but it's really good. Because he runs through. It's a young guy too, probably in his 20s. Runs through these different people's policies, what their thoughts are, what statements they made, and most importantly, their voting record, and sometimes what they say and what they don't say. Are they standing up to Trump? Are they standing up to the illegal actions that I believe that the man is taking? I mean, bombing U-boats, excuse me, not U-boats, but bombing boats off of Venezuela. Now as I record this, there's a carrier group on the way there. For what? Is Venezuela thinking about attacking the United States? What are we talking about here? So this is the will of the people that's being completely ignored. And millions and billions and trillions of dollars spent war after war after war. Soldiers coming home with post-traumatic syndrome. No infrastructure is lacking. Education is lacking. Colleges are lacking. But we got money for war.
Abraham Lincoln who decides to articulate what they are for. But when that happened, the people who stood up and said, we believe in equality before the law, we believe in the idea of equal access to resources, we believe in the idea that we have a say in our government, and we are opposed to oligarchy, those people won. They won across the board, even in the states that were dominated by the Democrats, who were thoroughly racist at the time. This idea that somehow the Democrats, the Northerners, were all in favor of Black rights in 1860s, just in the 1850s, is just completely wrong. And
yeah, don't ever believe that. I mean, the Democrats and the Republicans actually switched sides as far as political ideologies, right? So the Democrats at that time were the party of the KKK, and they were the racist ones. They were the Republican Party at that particular time, right? So don't let people convince you of otherwise.
Similarly, in Massachusetts, for example, the laws that they were passing there were fervently anti Irish. So the idea that people were in favor of equal rights is just wrong. What they were in favor of was the idea that they were not going to lose their democracy to an oligarchy. But crucially, there was huge push from the American people for people to stand up and to fight for those principles. Now, what does that look like in 2025? To me, it looks like fighting back against the things that we're seeing out of the White House right now. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, and to fight for the things that we care about: education, healthcare, equal access to resources, equal treatment before the law, no more special interests running our government. All those things that have really, really wide support among the country. So this division between, first of all, I don't know what centrist means in a world where all the positions that are identified in many media sources are actually, as progressive, are actually shared by more than 70% of Americans. That sounds pretty centrist to me. But I think what they mean is cozying up to the positions that Republicans have taken in the hopes that somehow that will peel away Republican voters. And I'm just not sure that's the case. I think that Republican voters are upset by corruption and by the takeover of our system by the wealthy and by the lack of health care and by the lack of education and so on, as Democratic voters are. They just need to have people stand up and articulate that. Now, again, you asked the question. That's where I am on that issue. And let me just go a little further than you asked about. And that's that, what does that mean? Does it mean we shut up the candidates who are farther to the left and we move the candidates that are farther to the right? I maintain that we need all of the voices, especially right now, but we need all of those voices participating in our government right now, because they're waking people up to issues they didn't even know they cared about. And they're making people understand that those issues could be addressed at the state or the national level or the local level. And so I'm not a big believer in silencing new voices, especially voices you don't like. I think those are very, very welcome. It's important, though, to remember that in order to get things through a state house or through Congress, you need to know what you're doing. You need to be able to make compromises. You need to understand the different areas of the country. You need to understand what it is possible to get through. And you have to be willing to work to build the structures that will enable you to do that. So, as you know, if you listen to me, I care very deeply about American taxation and how it has been really perverted, I think, over the last 40 years. And, if I could wave a magic wand, that's what I would do first. I would fix American taxation. Well, you know what? I can't wave a magic wand. In order to get something like that through the Congress, you've got to change who's in the Congress. And in order to get changes in the Congress, you have to change who's in the state houses, because in order to get it through Congress, you've got to get rid of partisan gerrymandering, and you've got to get rid of a Supreme Court that is going to support that kind of partisan gerrymandering. And that kind of slow building work over a generation is not something that is in my wheelhouse, and it's not something I think the Democrats have been very good at. So one of the things,
and that was really very key right there. I think she laid out the points about how they did it historically and what we have to do today. And you have to start with slow grass roots movements in order to change who's in the state houses, sometimes in city houses, city legislatures, etc., and build support and build a slow burn in order to change the national conversation. And you got to change it on state and local and state levels. And that is the most important thing. So I want to fast forward this to the end here, because she's going to continue on about that. And she's going to talk about nobody's doing anything and, what we should be doing, because it's 2025 as I record this. She's going to start talking about stop looking to 2026 and let's look at 2025, and 52,000 races across the country are going on. And so you need to vote. So let's talk about it here.
Now, in terms of that, lots of people frustrated, feeling like nobody's doing enough. I will tell you, a lot of people are doing a lot of things, and you should not feel as if nothing is getting done. And this is everywhere from in Capitol Hill, where the Democrats really are trying to throw sand in the gears of what the Republicans are doing. It's also happening in the state houses. It's also happening in social media. It's happening in the streets. There is a lot of pushback. But you want something special to do, feel like your time is being well spent? Stop worrying about 2026 and 2028 and who the candidates might be then or might not be, or how we should handle that. Focus on the fact that we have a major election coming up in this country in about 2 weeks. And that is the November elections of 2025, this year, in which there are 52,000 races on the ballot. And those races are incredibly important. So in Maine, for example, while everybody's focusing on who's going to be running for senator, which, by the way, the primaries aren't until next June. We have on the ballot this next month a question of whether or not we're going to dramatically limit absentee ballots. Why does that matter? 40% of voters in Maine use absentee ballots. You get rid of that, you've dramatically cut down on who votes in the state of Maine, and that will matter now, of course, but it will in 26. But it will also, I'm sorry, it'll matter in 2026. It will also matter in 2028 when the Republicans will have cut a number of Democratic voters out of the ballot. So if you care about what's going to happen down the road, focus in places like Maine where that's happening. Pennsylvania, there are 3 state Supreme Court justices on the ballot. Another case where people aren't really paying attention to those races, but they must be paying attention to those races because that's going to determine who gets to vote and what gerrymandering might look like going forward in the key swing state of Pennsylvania. 2 gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia coming up in November. You've got, as I say, races all over this country. You've got Proposition 50, I think it is, in California about pushing back against the gerrymandering that Texas did. So if you're really worried about what 2026 might look like or what 2028 might look like, your moment is now to look in November, because the trick to the November elections, the November 2025 elections, is that most of them will be determined by turnout. So find an organization that is working on organizing people to get to the polls, to make them aware of what's at stake, to make sure they know it's important. Because in these off-year elections, usually Republican voters show up, Democratic voters do not. And as I keep saying, this election, and I suspect the next 2 elections, are not going to be partisan. They're about protecting our democracy. So you want to be voting for the pro-democracy candidates. And when that happens, in 2026, people who are running for office are going to say, whoo, if I want votes, I better be protecting democracy as well. So for all the people who are like, what are we going to do? What can we do to stop him? And all sorts of, concerns about that. Literally, here's something you can do in the next 2 weeks to dramatically weaken Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And again, a really major showing in these elections across the country. These 52,000 elections are going to be a real sign of what's going to happen in 2026. So I really, really urge people to get out there, not just yourself, but make sure people know about these elections in your states. Get with the organizations that are fighting for those issues currently in those states, and turn out to support the pro-democracy candidates.
All right, so that's enough of that. So I just want to just really highlight this and say you got to get out and vote. And I know, something like 80 million people, 80 to 90 million people didn't vote. I believe that's the number. I'm doing off the top of my head here. So listen, you got to get out there. Stop listening to people who are going to tell you not to vote. Stop listening to people who are saying voting doesn't matter. And somebody may even in the comment section of this video say it doesn't matter and this, that, and the other, and all. It's all craziness. Look at the mess that we're in. Trump said, I don't know, it was the first election or second election, to the African-American community, what do you got to lose? Well, we've seen it now. We see it. We see it. And if you like what he's doing, well, you like what he's done, you like the ICE raids, you like the cutting back on ACA benefits, you like the tariffs, you like the prospect of war with Iran and the prospect of war with Venezuela, right? We're only not even a year in yet, right? If you liked what's going on here, then get out there and vote for it as well. But if you don't like what's going on, you don't appreciate how he's hurting the country, if you don't appreciate it, then get out there and do something about it. Right. So let me leave this off with something I played before. I'm going to play it again because I think it's really apropos here. This is Joyanne Reed, and she's going to be discussing what we should do. I'm going to speed this up a little bit here, but discussing the state of America and why some people are so mad.
Why are y'all so angry? You have the White House, you have both houses of Congress, you have a Supreme Court that is completely obedient to your president. They're willing to give him unlimited power. They're willing to say that he can take SEAL Team 6 and kill anybody he wants. They were willing to affirm that. They're willing to say that ICE can racially profile anybody they want. The United States Supreme Court has said you can racially profile Latinos based on their accent or the way they look. You guys have everything you want. You have legal racial profiling. You've ended DEI. You've ended affirmative action. You get all the best jobs even if you're not qualified. You can be a Fox Weekend host and be the Defense Department's Secretary of Defense. You can be Kash Patel and be a podcaster who wants to go to Valhalla and run the FBI as long as you're conservative. You have everything. Why are y'all so angry? What the fuck are you angry about? You've banned all of our books. You've banned Black history. You banned the 1619 Project. You don't have to compete with women for jobs. You've chased them out of the military. You've chased them out of the senior positions in the Department of Defense. You've gotten rid of all the Black history in the museums. Museums are terrified. I have contacts that I'm talking to inside of the Interior Department, people who are running all of those spaces where you can go and see a Civil War memorial or something. The people who work in these places are terrified. They're afraid to tell the real history. The people who are working for the federal government are afraid to say the word black. You guys have canceled black scholarships. You're damn near, I guess, ready to get rid of HBCUs. Donald Trump just recently said they're not going to fund any minority serving institution. Y'all have gotten rid of that. You've gotten rid of help for black kids to go to college. What more do you want? What are you so angry about? I go every so often, I go and lurk and look on X Twitter. Y'all are the maddest people ever. Y'all are so angry for people who have everything. Y'all said you want your country back. You have it. The rest of us are sitting back and trying to keep our peace and preserve our peace while you all are running the country. If the airlines are crashing, that's you. That's the people you wanted to run the United States government. The FBI, y'all are laughing at them on X Twitter and saying that they look ridiculous. That's your FBI. They've purged the people who made the FBI what it was. It's not what you wanted. You have your podcasters running the FBI. You have your friend from the real world running the Department of Transportation. That's what you wanted. There's no longer a gay guy there. The gay guy's gone. The gay guy's at home with his kid and his husband. He's not in charge anymore. The Department of Justice is what you wanted. It's your Justice Department that won't release the Epstein files. If you're mad about the Epstein files, you shouldn't be mad at me and the left. You need to be mad at Donald Trump. You all have the country. You run every red state like it's already Project 2025. You won't let women have abortions in Texas. They're literally dying of sepsis. That's what you wanted. You wanted women to have only 6 weeks to get an abortion in Georgia. You got it. You wanted Texas to be a petri dish and a laboratory for every right-wing, anti-black, anti-gay, anti-trans idea. And you also got rid of vaccines. Every child in Florida is now going to go to school with kids who could give them measles, mumps, and rubella and COVID. That's what y'all wanted. You now have a paradise in Florida where you can get sick, cough on people, let them die of whatever disease you're carrying. It's almost like you've got the pilgrims again that can come and cough on all the natives and take them out. That's what you wanted. You got it. You wanted Florida to be that. It's that. You wanted the United States to be Florida. It's that. But yet you all are still so angry. I don't understand it. I genuinely don't understand it. I don't mean to rant and rave, but I am genuinely trying to get to the bottom of what you all are so angry about. And I think I have a suspicion and I have a guess. What you all are angry about is that while you have gotten everything you wanted on the right, we on the other side won't give you love for it. We won't respect you for it. We won't hail you for it. We won't respect you and say, hey, we want to, have you at the Oscars. We want to fet you. We want to make you guys, we want to wrap our arms around you. You want us to embrace you. You don't just want to run us and tell us what to do and tell us what to think and tell us what to read and tell us what history we can have. You don't just want to tell us what to do. You want us to embrace you. What you really want is to sit at our table. You're mad because while you are running the country into the ground, you're destroying your own farmers with tariffs. You're destroying your own farmers by taking away their subsidies that used to go with USAID. You got what you wanted. They've ended the farm subsidies. These are the things y'all asked for. You got your big, beautiful budget. That's what you wanted. Trump gave it right to you. You got your permanent tax cut. You're still pissed because the left, the other side, the majority, we still cannot stand you. We cannot stand Christian nationalism. We don't want it. And because we will not say we want your Christian nationalism, we embrace your Christian nationalism. We like your Christian nationalism. We like you. Because we won't do that, that's why you're still mad. But guess what we're going to keep on doing? We're going to keep on being moisturized and unbothered, and we're still not going to like it. We're never going to like Christian nationalism. We're never going to accept it. We're never going to be down with it. And our squad is bigger than your squad at the end of the day. We have the Puerto Ricans. We got the Mexican Americans. They done woke up. They said, whoo, Lord, let's go ahead and go with these folks. We got the spicy whites. The spicy white folk are with us. They're with us. Right? We got the Asian Americans who woken up and said, whoa, we better be with them. Right? Chinese Americans, they see you. Japanese Americans like, you're going to do internment again? We see you.
South Koreans
like, oh, we see you. Y'all gonna kick the South Koreans out. Now you're going to cry because Georgia's going to have a worse economy because you're not going to get to have the South Koreans teaching y'all to have those high-tech jobs. South Koreans like, oh, well, sure hate it. Africa's like, we're just going to do business with each other. We got BRICS. We don't need y'all. Tourists are like, we don't need y'all. The African Americans, the Caribbean Americans are getting together and said, yo, why are we fighting each other? Caribbean Americans are like, yo, we were y'all. We invented hip-hop together. Let's go off. And you're mad at us because we do not want to be with you. This America you want, that's yours, y'all. You keep it. We don't want it.